Hey, what's going on, guys? Lewis here. And in today's video, I want to do a Spanish Pod 101 review. So I'm going to essentially try to help you determine whether or not this is worth it and how you can get the best price possible because they have this, discount system. So I've been using Spanish Pod 101 and other products from the same company. The company is named Innovative Language, and they have, Japanese Pod 101, which I use extensively for many years. What else? I mean, they pretty much have everything, French Class 101, and all of these websites work pretty much the same way. So Spanish Pod 101, in my mind, there are three sort of unique value propositions, three reasons why I would go with Spanish Pod 101 over other tools, but there's one major sort of drawback, which may be a deal breaker for some people. Now, before I get into this, I just want to say that I'm going to make sure to put a link in the description with the best price possible for Spanish Pod 101. I'm going to update it over time because they have different discounts going on all the time. So make sure to check out the link to get the best price possible for Spanish Pod 1. Now, Spanish Pod 101, I'm just going to show you a sample lesson because most lessons are organized in pretty much the same way. This is a lesson page, and this is Spanish Pod 101, right? Spanish Podcast 101. The lessons are centered around a podcast, and usually it's around, I would say, a minimum of 10 minutes, up to 20, even, a little bit more sometimes, 25 minutes tops, but usually around 15 to 20 minutes. And so I can play the podcast here on the web. I'm just going to pause it here, but you also have, of course, the mobile app where you can download the lessons and consume them offline. But essentially, the podcast is a lesson. So there is, it is centered around a conversation in Spanish. You have the script here. You have also the translation. It's not just the conversation, right? There are usually 2 or 3 hosts, and they discuss the conversation, the nuances, the vocabulary, the grammar, the cultural notes, and so on. The good thing, and this is one of the pros of Spanish Pod 101, is that there's so many levels. If you go to lessons here, lesson library, you'll see that it goes from absolute beginner to advanced. And when you're at the absolute beginner level, the lessons, the podcasts, there's going to be, some Spanish, but also some English because, you're an absolute beginner. And as you progress through the levels, more and more of the audio is going to be in Spanish, to the point where when you get to intermediate, upper intermediate, most of the podcast, most of the audio, the 15, 20 minutes, most of it is going to be in Spanish, but still at the right level for you. So in my mind, this is really the biggest advantage with Spanish Pod 101. This is probably the biggest library of Spanish audio on the internet when it comes to, having audio at the right level for you, because you can always go to Netflix and consume stuff in Spanish, but is it at the right level? Probably not. Now, before we get into the other pros, I want to talk about the main con, which is, yes, they have the levels, 1 to 5. The absolute beginner pathway gives you an order of lessons, and this is good, but at the same time, even if you do these lessons in order, I still find that it's not as linear and as organized as, a textbook, for example, where you can just, read from page 1, and textbooks tend to be a lot more organized. Here, yes, there is an order, but I find that sometimes, there is some overlap between the lessons in terms of vocabulary and in terms of grammar. It personally doesn't bother me because I like to have some overlap, and, it allows me to review old stuff. But this is something to keep in mind. If you want something much more textbook-like, much more organized from A to Z, I would suggest taking a look at Rocket Spanish. I'm going to put a link to this in the description. But as I said, it doesn't really bother me at all. And the fact that they have thousands of hours of audio, the library of lessons is huge. You have everything for every level. And really, if you were to just use Spanish Pod 101 to learn Spanish, it would be possible because there are thousands of lessons. Pathways are huge, but they feel manageable. And finally, the final pro, the third pro, is that the lessons are really bite-sized in the sense that, they last from, 15 to 20 minutes usually. And so it's not like this huge wall of text or this huge thing that takes an hour, 2 hours to do. My objective usually is to do one lesson a day. And The lesson, as I said, has a conversation in English, in Spanish, and you have the translation in English. They also have the dialogue in formal Spanish, but also if your goal is just to talk with natives, you have the dialogue in informal Spanish. Of course, you have all the vocabulary here, which is, I find it's really great. It's the vocab from the lessons, and you can just check all the boxes here and add to your flashcard decks. There is a flashcard application embedded into SpanishPod 101. I guess that a second con that SpanishPod 101 has is that the vocabulary, even if you go to absolute beginner, sometimes there are words that I would consider more intermediate. So, it's not really linear in terms of vocabulary, but most of the time it's fine. Also, a super useful feature is that you can download a PDF with all of the lesson notes. So there you go. This is the PDF for this lesson here, and it contains all of the content. All of the vocabulary is here. You have simple sentences. All of the grammar is explained, and it's just a super detailed resource. And at the end, you have some cultural insight as well. Also, if for some reason you want to download the audio files, you can do that here. The lesson audio, which is the entire podcast, the dialogue is just a dialogue in Spanish, and the review track, which is essentially a quiz that it's going to quiz you on the vocabulary. All right, and lastly, I want to talk about pricing for SpanishPod 101. So there are 3 plans: Basic, Premium, and Premium Plus. Now, as you can see, there's currently a discount for SpanishPod 101. By the time you watch this video, the discount will probably not be available anymore. This is just for the Black Friday week. However, I'm going to make sure to put a link in the description with the best discount that I can find. I'm going to update the link regularly as I find discounts. Now, in terms of the plans, there are 3 plans: Basic, Premium, and Premium Plus. I've tried all of them for, the different products: SpanishPod 101, Korean Class 101, Japanese Pod 101, and here are the differences. Most of the time, the plan I would recommend is Premium. For most people, this is going to be the biggest bang for your buck. The thing with Basic is that it's a lot less expensive than Premium and certainly Premium Plus, but you're so limited. And to me, the deal breaker with Basic is that you don't get, line by line audio. And also, in the pathways, you don't get access to premium lessons. So now don't get me wrong, all of the lessons are available with Basic, but there are assessments in the pathways, sort of tests that are only available with Premium. And this may sound like kind of a gimmick, but I have found that the assessments are actually really, really useful to assess your level. Did you understand the level or not? And a lot of times when you assess yourself, when you take the assessments, you actually remember things a lot better. Also, something to note is that if you get Basic, you're not going to have access to the flashcard application within SpanishPod 101. So, I would go with Premium because, for $50 per month, it's still pretty inexpensive. Now, Premium Plus, honestly, I think now with AI and so on, it's just not worth it anymore. Essentially, Premium Plus is like Premium, but you also get access to a teacher. Now, you get access to a teacher, but not video calls. It's only going to be text messages. It's text messages through the platform, through SpanishPod 101. And this teacher can give you feedback on, things that you say. You can record stuff and send it to the teacher. You can, send some homework to the teacher and so on. So you're getting feedback from a Spanish speaker. They also give you assessments and also guidance in terms of which lessons you should do. Although in my case, personally, I just use the pathways. And so, I don't know. Now you can get some very, very good feedback from AI. I guess if you want to get feedback on your speaking, this can actually, you can make a case for Premium Plus, but note that it is a lot more expensive than the other plans. It's more than twice the price of Premium. So that's it for this review of SpanishPod 101. Once again, I'm going to put a link with the best price possible that I can find for SpanishPod 101. That's going to be in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.